Brian Biro happened to be one of the first performance instructors that Fuel got introduced to from a dear friend of ours. And Brian, it's so good to have you with us today. Thank you for all you do in the world to help people think at different levels. And I am grateful we get to hang out together.
Well, I am thrilled to be with you. It fills me with joy to be around you, anyways, and to do it where we're hopefully making a big difference for a lot of people, a lot of organizations. What could be better than that?
Yeah, yeah. Difference making. We were just talking before we went live on the webinar, and difference making is one of the things you and I wake up every day to experience. And it's an interesting start to the segue of what we want to do today with you. But as a thought process, as you guys listen to this, we've got, obviously the YouTube live stream audience, and then we have our platform audience here. It's interesting on a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate yourself as a leader in making a difference? And I know that may sound like it's not a loaded question. It's just a really interesting question because I've said repeatedly, probably at least on 80% of these weekly leadership lives that people follow you for two reasons. One, they have to, and that's not the good reason. And the other is they want to, and that's the making a difference reason. So, hey, give everybody a sense of who Brian Biro is, and just kind of give us the story, the short story of who's Brian Biro.
Well, it starts with a love of people. I believe we have more in us than we think, that we've been given more gifts. My mentor was the great John Wooden, the greatest coach of all time, in my opinion. A humble man, a kind man. He often said, there are no overachievers. And before I really understood that, I think I believed that, even when I was just a kid in school. So I kind of had that fire in my gut that we have more in us. And so I've had three wonderful careers. First as a U.S. swimming coach, where I was working with young athletes to rise their potential. And that's when I learned you don't really coach swimming, you coach people. You help people break through their fears, their obstacles, their habits, their doubts. And I loved it. But then the next step was I had no life. So my second career was a corporate career. I'm the only guy who went to get an MBA to get a life instead of a job. And I ended up with both. And that's where I really began to understand that the same things that I had done in coaching swimming, coaching young people, were absolutely applicable in the corporate world. How to really break through, move from silos to synergy. And I was in an industry that I didn't really love. And I said to my wife at the peak of this massive turnaround that came not because of the marketplace changing, because us changing on the inside, honey, we're doing great. Let's quit. And that's when because I had started doing team building in my own organization, and it had this massive impact. And so for 35 years, I've been doing this work I love so dearly as a speaker and an author, and I'll just keep doing it. And I'm fired up about what Fuel has brought, which is a way to take all these years of passion about understanding leadership. And my foundation is everyone is a leader.
Yes.
This isn't a CEO conference. This is a conference. We're all the CEOs of our own life. And that's the starting place for breakthrough leadership. And to have the opportunity to do it in bite-sized chunks as we do on Fuel is so awesome. But most of all, on every one of my emails, you know what it says, the same thing. First and foremost, husband, father, grandfather. That's number one. Then speaker author.
I love it, and I even love the fact that the times that I've seen you speak, that is your core motivation, to the extent that you even show an audience a picture of your family, right? And I think at the end of the day, the priorities that are ignored become bigger priorities, and sometimes we don't know them. And that can be a comment that we place on leadership. What are the priorities right now that maybe you're ignoring? What are the priorities that you're procrastinating on? What are some of the priorities that keep you up late at night, right? And the longer that you don't do something about those, the more that they kind of permeate your leadership spirit and soul. And I was talking to Gerhard Geschwanter yesterday, and he was asking me about what one of the great CEO experiences I had as a speaker was, and I said it was really interesting because I asked an audience of CEOs. I asked them, so here's a leadership question on priorities. And I said, just put your hand up if there's somebody on your payroll that you've kind of lost trust in, but you're still paying them. It was very uncanny to see how many hands went up, and I would say the majority of hands went up. And that begs to really understand this cascading effect that you just started with us, that First and foremost, everybody on Leadership Live is the CEO of their own brand, their own life, their own leadership kind of deal. As we talk about leadership, as we talk about teams, as we talk about the things that you can bring to this conversation today, I resonate with what you just said about, and I said it last week, and I said it the week before, that the first person you have to lead is yourself. Go off on that for a little bit, because when you really think that I am the CEO of my life, I do have control over things in my life that bring me to a higher level of thinking, which can be the whole breakthrough idea, to a higher level of compassion, maybe in leadership, to a higher level of not antagonistic like coaching, but feedback loops that help people win. What's been your experience there? And then if you guys want to throw some questions in as we go through this, I know that our platform audience is not as big as the YouTube audience, but you're here nevertheless. So this is a great opportunity to ask Brian some questions. Let's go off on the first thing. You are the CEO of your business and your life.
Yeah, I'm called America's Breakthrough Speaker because to me, what we have the chance to do every day is breakthrough. Breakthrough from fear to freedom, from failure to faith, from ego to ego, and from good to great. And the starting place, it always starts on the inside. Probably the most powerful belief that you can have is one that says, if things are to change, I must change. One of my favorite quotes about leadership was from the old Alabama football coach, Bear Bryant. And he was a legend, but he said this. He says, I'm just an old country plowhand. He said, but if I've learned one thing, if you want to get a team's heart to beat as one, it said, when things go great, they did it. Things go pretty good, we did it. Things go bad, I did it. In other words, it starts on the inside and moves to the outside. And what that means is, for us to be the CEOs of our own life, it starts with understanding that we have an opportunity to control key controllables. And, Todd, we've talked about this before. Think about how you feel when you're controlling your controllables. You're focusing on the priorities and controllables that you really have, as opposed to the uncontrollables. When you're focusing on the things you do control, you feel momentum, you feel confident, you feel energized and activated. It's when we focus on the things we don't control that we start to get frustrated or disillusioned. So here's an incredible question to start off to be the CEO of your own life. And it's kind of what you led into. What are you focusing on? What are you focusing on? How many of us focus more on worrying about what will go wrong than creating what we want to go right?
Yeah.
How many of us focus more often on the things or the people that upset us, that anger us, that disillusion us, as opposed to those things that bring us joy? In the concept of my seminars, you know that I have people break through wooden boards.
Yeah.
How many people are focusing on the board or on the breakthrough? Whichever way you focus, what you focus on is what you create. So the starting place to be that CEO of your own life is to say, if things are to change, I must change. And where are the key controllables? What are they? And there's three. I spent 49 years working to narrow it down to three. The first is to shape your future. And that's about vision. Most of us don't use our vision to see very often. What we use is our memory to see. And we've never studied vision, but we have some control over our vision. Do you focus on what you want or what you don't want? And then to really condition that opportunity. It doesn't pretend that there don't things go wrong. It doesn't pretend there isn't a board. You see the board, but then you focus beyond that instead of getting so swept up in the obstacle. Second one is to energize and engage your team. And a very simple question to everyone. Before you can energize and engage anybody else, who must you energize and engage? Yourself.
You.
There is no more powerful ripple effect generator than your energy. And the third is the one that I think this webinar we're going to focus on most of all, is to build people, build teams, and build relationships. That is a controllable. There are things that we can do every single day to make that breakthrough happen. And as we do it to others, we can't help but have it come back to ourselves. So it really comes down to focusing on controlling those controllables. And the one that makes the biggest difference in the world, ultimately, if I had to choose, it's like choosing your favorite daughter. I can't really do it, but it's to build people, build teams, and build relationships. Because of everyone who's watching this webinar, you're all in the same business.
Yes.
You're in the people business. It's
Right.
how you grow and help others grow that will determine how far you can go.
So I heard something very early on, and I'm glad we get to focus on people and teams and relationships, because I think that at least for me as a brand new leader, I was told by my mentor that just because you are the leader and just because your card says you are the leader, you cannot lead by title. And I said, well, what do I lead with? And he goes, leadership is influence, and influence only happens when you have relationships. And so, in some way that there is a moment of connection that leaders can have with followers that I think, at least in my world, as I see so many leaders self-profess that they don't have that kind of connection. And when you don't have that connection, it's very hard to build a person. And as Tony Evans, a great pastor, said, you got to build the person to build the team. And if the people that are on the team are all being built individually by the leader, then the team is stronger, and that team can change a county, a state, it can change a world. And that just kind of said to me, man, that this leadership thing is no joke. It's a huge opportunity to level up and to do things that um, gosh, are indelibly memorable in the lives of the people you lead. So you're a joy person. I don't know a lot of people show up and have joy at work. I remember a book, I forget the author, but it's the only book he's ever written, and it was probably 20 years ago. But it was called Joy at Work, and he was retiring as a CEO of a company that he was very proud that he created a culture of joy. And I think about Brian Biro every time I think about that book. But joy emanates, I think, from this new Gallup study, which talks about hope. And when leaders give people direction, vision, right? When leaders give people hope, which is encouragement, and when that hope manifests itself into actions that feed the soul, then you have this kind of alchemy of these three things you're talking about. Build people, build teams, build relationships. Walk us through the recipes on this stuff, and let's see if we can get some action going with the people that are on the platform right now. And again, you guys throw some questions, share some ideas. Could you be better at building people? Could you be better at building teams? Could you be better at deepening relationships? And not a rhetorical or loaded question. It's like, okay, if I can, because Brian just said it starts with you, then let's go. Okay, Brian, take us away.
Well, you just laid it out so beautifully. Let's go on since we're on this webinar together today, let's go on a field trip. And we're going to go back not only to another location, but another time. And we're going to go back to the days of the ancient Greeks. Okay. And in the island of Cyprus, there lived a wise and wonderful man whose name was Pygmalion. Now, Pygmalion was a great guy. You would love to have him as your boss. You'd love to have him as a teammate. He was kind. He was compassionate. He was thoughtful. He was unselfish. And he was revered by the people around him. However, the myth or the legend of Pygmalion says that in his personal life, Pygmalion felt alone. He felt lonely. He had no one intimate and close to share his days with. Well, one day in the depths of this loneliness, Pygmalion finally said, I can't take this anymore. I can't stand this feeling of loneliness. And what he decided to do was to pour himself into a project so he could just take all this pent up belief and dreams and emotion and desires and just pour it into something. And if you ever worked on a project, as I know you have, Todd, where you're so into it that time just disappears, that's what happened to Pygmalion. He worked for 3 days and 3 nights creating a sculpture. He was also a great artist. The guy was a whiz kid. And after 3 days and 3 nights, he stepped back and he looked at what he created. And what stood before him now was no longer a block of clay. It was a magnificent sculpture of a woman. Mm. And the legend says that it was so much the essence of everything that what he wanted, his desires, his beliefs, his hopes, that as he looked at what he created, he lost his heart. He fell in love. Well, at that moment, the goddess of love, Aphrodite, happened to be looking down and said, this Pygmalion, good dude. Let's help him out just this one time. So she descended to earth, magically, invisibly, pulled out an invisible magical bow and arrow, let fly with an arrow, and went straight into the heart of the stone sculpture. Well, the legend says that the instant that the arrow struck the stone, transformation occurred. Wow. And the stone turned from stone into a living, breathing woman whose name was Galatea. Galatea opened her eyes. She saw Piggy. Piggy saw her. And they fell in love and they lived happily ever after. Now, give me a woo on that one. Woo! Now, I don't know if it's a true story or not, Todd, but I do know this. The principle that it teaches is the starting place to build people, teams, and relationships. And it's called the Pygmalion Effect. And any great leader who's going to build hope, who's going to build momentum, who's going to reduce turnover, who's going to build a sense of, I want to get better every day, is a certain kind of Pygmalion. And the Pygmalion effect says that our thoughts and our beliefs and our expectations are magnetic. In the same way that Pygmalion breathed all this life into that stone, we are breathing that kind of impact on the people around us. Most of all, through our energy, through our not so much even through our words, but through our body language and our tonality. Now, this idea has been around forever, and I studied psychology at Stanford 2 years after they invented the wheel. So, it was a fairly long time ago. Nobody had ever proved, is the Pygmalion effect real? Until a researcher from Harvard by the name of Robert Rosenthal came along and decided to test it. And what he did was he went into a whole bunch of first grade classrooms at all different kinds of schools, all different locations, rural schools, urban city schools. And he went into the first grade classrooms and told the teachers that he had developed a test for first graders that would identify for the teachers something that you, as the owner of your business, would love to know about the people you're bringing into your team. It would identify for the teachers which of the students were what he called spurters. Now, a spurter was a child with tremendous potential, but who had not used it yet. Mm-hmm. And this test would identify for the teachers which of the kids were spurters. So he administered the test, over 500 kids, 25 different schools, gathered up the papers. A week and a half later, came back to the classrooms and told the teachers, and only the teachers, who were the spurters. Said, Todd's a spurter, Alex is a spurter, Danielle's a spurter. Told the teacher who the spurters were. But guess what? It was all a fake. He had never graded anything.
Wow.
What he did was he gathered those papers, took a basic first grade intelligence test, gathered the papers, took them home and burned them. Never looked at one of them. Wow. So completely at random, he told the teachers who the spurters were. Well, guess what happened? Over 95% of those children randomly selected as spurters spurted. They rose to the top of their class and they stayed there. Why? Who changed? The teachers. Because the teachers no longer looked at Todd the same way. When they looked at Todd, they saw a spurter. They saw that potential. Brilliant study proved the impact that we have on each other as Pygmalions. However, Rosenthal got sued for it. And guess who sued him?
The teacher.
The parents of the other kids.
because
them as if they were not spurters. So here's the starting place to build people, teams, and relationships. And that is to understand that we are all Pygmalions, that our thoughts, beliefs, and expectations are communicating more than we know. And that comes back to how we do it. The Banner study on all of communication asks the simple question. There's 3 elements in communication. There's words, there's tonality, which is not what we say, but how we say it. It's our voice qualities. And the third is body language. Well, 55% of communication has nothing to do with what comes out of our mouth. It's our body language. 38% is tonality. Only 7% are words. So we are most of all communicating that Pygmalion through our body language and our tonality. All right. And so the starting place of Pygmalion is to ask yourself, you are already a Pygmalion. The only question is what kind?
Yeah.
When you look at people, do you look for their strengths? Do you look for their possibilities? All right. When you look in the mirror, do you see your pimples or your possibilities? All right, because you're Pygmalion to everyone, but most of all, you're Pygmalion to whom?
Yourself.
Right, and
that's interesting. I just did a quick search while you were talking, and the AI overview says it so simply. It says the Pygmalion effect is the psychological phenomenon where higher expectations lead to improved performance, effectively creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then it goes on to talk about Rosenthal. And, it's interesting. I think one of the great quotes I remember from Goethe, the philosopher, he would say, if you treat somebody as he is or she is, he or she will remain that way. If you treat that person as what they could become, that person will become that way of you treating them, right? And I think that has to do with one of the things you brought up early on, which was vision. And it'd be really great to pop into the offices of everybody that's watching our dialogue and and just ask, do you know where somebody wants to be? Are you treating them like the Wayne Gretzky quote, right? I don't go to where the puck is. I go to where the
Yes.
puck's going to be. Leadership is about going to the place the person on your team wants to be, not where they are necessarily, even though to move them, they have to go there. But it's just interesting. How many of you would have like the 3-year vision? Like, we go back to Chip Larson, the founder of Lululemon, right? And he had 1 year, 5-year, and 10-year vision and goals exercises that everybody on the team had to go through so that the store leaders and the divisional managers and regional executives knew where people wanted to be. And then the vulnerability of publishing those dream boards in the dressing rooms of the Lululemon retail stores so that the customers could start to see, and then to create a document where everybody that was buying Lululemon clothes could actually log in and do the 1 and 3 and 5-year and 10-year vision casting, because it was part of how the brand built the people, right? And the accountability of, you can imagine 10 people in a store and they're got retail customers trying stuff on, and in the dressing room are all these dream boards. It's like that just spins me up thinking that's what leadership is. And there's nothing that says anybody on this call cannot have on every desk in the office that they work in, or if they're still remote in some ways, at least a visual representation of that on calls. What's your dream? Where do you want to be?
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. You made me think of another quote that says what you said, it's from Cervantes, and Don Quixote says, "Too much sanity may be madness. The maddest of all to see life as it is and not as it should be."
Yes.
And if you
Yes.
believe, as I do, that breakthrough vision starts with the simple idea that what we focus on is what we create,
Right.
and how do you become a positive Pygmalion? It starts by focusing more on what you want to create. And that
Yeah.
means help bring out the best in people, and I have kind of a fun way to do that. All right. We'll get practical because how do you become a truly positive Pygmalion? How do you really do that? How do you condition that to that's not what you do, it's who you are?
Right.
And a great way to do it is to become what I call a world-class buddy thinker. All right. And, I like to put things in kind of fun terms. World-class buddy thinker. So I'm going to play just with you for a second, Todd. Because this is about recognition, acknowledgement, appreciation, presence, and really, truly kindness, how to build people through those elements. And that's a very fundamental part of the Pygmalion Effect. So when I use the word world class, no question to me, Fuel is super world class. It's creating a whole new paradigm of what's possible for micro learning. But if I say to you, okay, who out there is, when you think of world class amusement park entertainment, who do you think of?
I think of I don't think of Cirque du Soleil, even though they disrupted it. I think of Barnum and Bailey.
Okay, well, you're thinking of circuses, so that's pretty good. But I'm thinking, usually people say Disney. I ask this question to
Oh,
my men.
maybe I misunderstood the question.
Yeah, well, yeah. How about world-class coffee houses? Who do you think of?
Starbucks.
Yeah, world-class sports television.
Uh, ESPN.
All right, you just nailed it. You've got past it. How do you become a truly positive chameleon who builds people, teams, and relationships, and becomes a world-class buddy thinker? From here on out, all we got to do, whether you love sports or you could care less, is remember ESPN. All right, we're going to give you a very practical way to start to build that positive Pygmalion in you that builds people. The E says thank people, recognize, appreciate people with effort and energy. That's the E. You ever
Wow.
notice that sometimes we thank people, we're not even there anymore, and go, hey, thanks a lot, appreciate it, gotta go. It means nothing. And you're a master of the right way to use the E. When you put some energy into what you say, when that tonality is saying, man, you did an awesome job. You started, before we got in this call, called me the merchant of joy. You put something into it. When you shake somebody's hands with both your hands, it sticks, it connects. So the E says, acknowledge people, thank people, appreciate people. Todd, you and I both work with thousands of organizations. And if there's one thing I've heard more than any other, especially in the last few years, that is missing from, and both the C-suite people and all the people in the company have the same knowledge of it. It's that people don't feel appreciated.
Yes.
People don't feel recognized. People don't feel that there's any gratitude for them. So the E says, thank people with effort and energy, and you're on the way to building them. But the E has a bigger part to it. And this is the part that'll transform you to a super positive Pygmalion almost immediately. The E not only means acknowledge and thank people with effort and energy, but acknowledge and appreciate and recognize people for their effort and energy and not just their results. We have been conditioned in our businesses and our schools and our homes to only give praise when the job's done, when the number's been hit, when the goal's been achieved. Now, hear me loud and strong. Keep doing that.
Yeah.
You always want to appreciate people for great performance. But if you want to be a truly positive Pygmalion who rocks the level of energy in your team, be more alert for the opportunities to acknowledge people for their effort, their energy, and their attitude. Why? How many people watching this webinar have ever gone after a goal? You worked harder than you've ever worked. You did better than you ever did. And you did not reach the goal. Every hand's up. Why? Because where do goals come from? I'll show you where they come from, Todd. Joop, joop, joop. We invent goals, our vision. We make them up, their imagination. So if you only wait to acknowledge and appreciate and catch people for doing it right when they've hit that number, guess what? You're going to take people for granted. And when people feel taken for granted, they move from that spirit we want to build in our teams, which is, oh yeah, whatever you throw at them, oh yeah. They'll move to, okay. And eventually, if you're not careful, it becomes a habit to, oh no.
Yes.
But when you acknowledge people for their effort, their energy, their attitude, guess what? They're going to produce more results.
Right.
Because now they're focusing on what they do control. A lot of people have, for many, 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 many years, have tried to figure out what made John Wooden the most successful coach in history. If you don't know who John Wooden is, if you're a Ted Lasso fan, you do know who John Wooden is, because that series is motivated by Jason Sudeikis' love of John Wooden, and his pyramid of success, which is right behind me, right, is on the wall of Ted Lasso. They've tried to figure out what made him such a great coach, such a great builder of people, such a positive Pygmalion. And they miss one of the biggest ones. John Wooden was the best I've ever seen at acknowledging people for their effort and energy more than their results. He was always looking for the subtle things that never showed up on the sports page, that never made it to the newspaper, never made it to the television. He was looking for their unselfishness, their extra hustle, all right, the way that the things that they controlled. And as a result, everyone in his team felt important and important to recognize. In John Wooden's day, he had a basketball team of 14 players. Only 7 in his teams usually ever got in a game. That means 7 people never even got in a game at UCLA. Their history on their sport was done on the practice floor, and yet they were dedicated, excited. They felt they were in a great place. And that's because he was looking to acknowledge people for their effort and energy. So the E in SPM, thank people with and for effort and energy. I'll just stop there because I know you've got things to say, and then we'll go to
No. I think, the one thing I'm reminded of, having the shared experience with John Wooden and our family knowing him, was the idea that at a lunch with him and several other people and Ken Blanchard said, the key to being a great leader is catch people doing things right. And that's as simple as it can be. There's such a proclivity, I think, to try to look at what people aren't doing the right way. And there's 2 lessons here. One is people don't do things the right way most often when it's not in their core skill set. And to take time to teach people to do something better that is not in their core skill set is, in my opinion, a waste of time. John Wooden used to have what he called the shot spot. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
The shot spot was, with the people starting, where were they likely? Where was their strength shot on the court? And his entire goal was to get all 5 players 80% of their shots in the top 3 shot spots. Top shot number 1, 85% completion rate. Top shot number 2, maybe it's a 70%. Top shot number 3. So he started with the place that they had the most likelihood to score. And you can imagine when a professional basketball player scores, it's not only good for the relationship with the coach, it's good for the relationship with the team, and it's good with the relationship with the fans, right?
Absolutely. I'm picturing that corner, what would be a 3 now, but in those days they didn't have the 3-point line of of Lynn Shackelford with the high arching shot going, because that was his spot.
Right.
Brilliant. I'll tell you what he did too, that John Wooden, another great way to really bring about this concept of really acknowledge people for their effort and energy in the hot spot. He used to help people develop. He used what he called the sandwich technique. See, most of the time when, as leaders, we tell people what's wrong.
Right.
Right? What he did was he first showed them what was right.
Yeah.
Then he showed them what they did, not pretending that there wasn't a mistake made or that it couldn't be improved. And then he showed them what's right again. So a ratio of 2 to 1, right, correct, right again. So that, because what our mind holds on to, if we only show them what's wrong, is we hold on to whatever we focus on is what we create. We create more of the same mistakes. So absolutely, we could do a whole show on John Wooden. We'll do that another time. I love that.
But listen, if we go back to his original name was Lou Alcindor, right? And that became Kareem Abdul Jabbar. Bottom line is 83% of the shots that he scored in his life, and he had more points as a basketball player until he was upended a couple years ago. And 83% of his shots were the top of the key over the head from the right arm into the basket. That was his number one shot spot. And that's what we want as leaders. We want people primed and put in a place where they excel naturally.
And they feel excited and they feel motivated and they feel inspired and they feel like they're controlling their controllables. Absolutely. Put people in the right spot. That means play to their strengths and manage around the weaknesses. Find somebody else who can fill that strength. So
Right.
that's the E. Well, let's get to the S. The S is the most untaught. So in ESPN, think people with and for effort and energy. S is the most untaught, and yet in certain cases, absolutely the most transformational secret to building people, teams, and relationships, being a positive Pygmalion. It stands for surprise. All right. And to me, surprise is the super glue of breakthrough impact in the way and I'm talking about being a mother or a father. I'm talking about whether you're a supervisor. I'm talking about any place where you're trying to build people, including with customers. So surprise sticks to people. All right. And positive surprise stays with forever. So next week, all right, your son, all right, shows up in his office on Friday, and there's a handwritten card from a teammate. And the first thing that your son notices is it's handwritten. You get anything handwritten these days. What is it? It creates surprise. It's like, wow, they took some time. It's personal, or I guess his computer's down. But basically, they're thinking, wow, I did something surprising, a handwritten card. Second thing that your son does, he automatically goes into his mind and says, about timing. It's not my birthday. It's not my anniversary. It's just Friday. So because of a simple way of somebody taking the time to do something surprising, a handwritten card and a happy heck of it instead of tied to an event, what's the impact of that little bit of surprise to your son regarding that card? He's 100 times more interested in opening that card than all the emails that have piled up. So he opens up the card and it says, dear, I'll say your name. It's Dear Todd. I just want you to know the difference you make in this world. Your light shines through. You are the merchant of hope. You make a difference for every person every day, not by just what you do, but more importantly, by how you do it. As Mother Teresa said, it's the love you put into the doing that makes the difference. And you do that consistently. I just wanted you to know your friend, Brian. Your son will keep that card more than any birthday card he ever got. Why? It came with surprise.
Yeah.
Please do this with your kids. You know, I know that Fuel is about not only business, but about your home life. And all the years my daughters were growing up, I would write them surprise letters 3 or 4 times a year. I'd type them on my computer because that's how I write. I'd sign them. I put them in an envelope. I put a stamp on them. I mail them to them, even if I knew I was probably going to be home when the letter came. And the reason I did it was I wanted to walk my talk.
Yeah.
I wanted to not just talk about being a world-class buddy thinker, but be one. Because why do we take the very people we love for granted? I think some of it has to do with our communication. So much of our communication with the people we interact with the most is in the heat of the moment. Why don't you clean that room? Fungus is growing in there. You know, why don't you get ready 5 minutes earlier so we're not late and everybody gets crabby? So on those days, I would step back and be a world-class buddy thinker. I'd write about when they were kind for no reason. I write about when they were giving and thoughtful. I write about when they're courageous and they tried out for something at school that they really didn't know if they had a chance to get. And you know the real reason I did it, Todd? because it felt good.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
best thing about being a world-class buddy thinker, the greatest side benefit, is you don't need anything back. You don't need approval. It feels good in the giving. But I really didn't think my daughters gave a hoot. In fact, I
Mhm.
thought my daughters thought I got the weirdest dad. He writes me these letters, he mails them to me, then he goes to the mailbox, gets the letter, and he comes in my room and hands it to me. I got a weird dad. It's just not true. But on the last day that my youngest daughter, Jenna, was with us before she started her college life in the University of Georgia, we're in her room, we're cleaning up, we're packing up. It's mass hysteria. There's stuff everywhere. I open up her desk drawer. There's
Oh,
every one of my letters. The only thing in my daughter's life that's truly organized were those letters. And I realized in that moment that my daughter couldn't look at her desk without feeling an anchor, a tug about how much I believe in her, how good she is, how strong she is.
so powerful.
When Jenna was 23 years old and had graduated from Georgia, she faced a terrible tragedy in that the man that she was about to become engaged with, too, died from a drug overdose.
Mm,
And it tore her beautiful heart up. And
mm,
I wanted to fix it, Todd. And I know
yeah.
what you know, feeling bad, but it wasn't mine to fix. Well, in about 5 weeks, my beautiful daughter, it was hard. It took a while, but we'd have to adjust the lighting on this webinar if she was with me because she shines so bright. And she's going to get married in 5 weeks to a wonderful man who loves her. And I know that in some small way, those little surprises helped her through the toughest time. That's what surprise can do. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. It can be a post-it note on somebody's door. It can be stopping a meeting to acknowledge somebody who didn't even know they could be acknowledged because you were focusing on what they put in instead of just the result. It could be that handwritten card. But know that surprise, all right, sticks with people to help them see themselves with new eyes. And remember, what we focus on is what we create. And by doing those surprises from time to time, you help people see who they really are. So
Yeah.
that's the E. Thank people with and for effort and energy. S, use the power of surprise. The P and the N are the most important of all. We'll get to those in a minute.
I just want to say that my father passed away at the age of 92 5 years ago, and I had this beautiful picture on my desk in Laguna Beach. But behind that picture, I have 18 of the most important handwritten notes that he gave to me over my life. And that's where I store them because I never want to wonder where are my notes from dad. And all I have to remember is my notes for dad are right behind his picture on my desk. And to read those notes anytime, but especially when the person that was your greatest mentor is gone, is remarkable. And the other thing that Deb and I do, we have fun with this. Whenever I'm going on a trip, I'll spend about an hour before the sun comes up just walking through the house and putting post-it notes in places that I know she's going to see, but she won't see it for maybe a day or two or something like that. And she starts to do the same thing because she'll get up in the middle of the night and she'll go to my suitcase that's already packed and she'll open it and put some stuff in, or she'll put some on my computer lid or something like that. But it's just there's joy, Brian, from notes of praise and notes of gratitude and notes of love. I mean, there's joy, and you just can't. And imagine if leaders did that. Imagine if somebody showed up, they opened their laptop on their cubicle, and all of a sudden there was a note from you that just said, "I'm proud of you." Those are the
Absolutely.
things that really, really matter. So,
That's a great way to use technology in a
yeah,
great way. It's now that my daughters are scattered across,
yeah,
one's not that far away anymore. She's in Williamsburg, Virginia, and the other's in Austin, Texas. I write, and I know I'm old fashioned. I write full sentences in text, but most of my texts are happy heckavits to remind them that they're loved, remind them of how strong and good they are. So
yeah,
that's a great way to use technology, not just for to-do lists. So
yeah, yeah. Well, back to Ken Blanchard, who deserves my praise today? It's a great question. Great question. All right, give us the P and take us home with the
again, the P is the most important of all. In fact, when we talk about building people, teams, and relationships, we talk about being a positive Pygmalion. You can't do it without the P. The P is the foundation of it all. I've taught over 2,000 events, but there's one thing I've never left out of an event because to me, it's the most important foundation of what we're here for. And the P stands, I call it the gift. The P stands for being fully present. It's something that you truly are, Todd. So What does it mean when you're fully present? I call it the gift. When you're fully present, 100% of your mind, body, and spirit is with that person you're with where they are now. Now, how many of us have ever been with somebody? Well, we know their body's there, but the rest of them is definitely in another county. And here's the question: how does it make you feel when someone you wish to be fully present with you is not fully present with you? How does it make you feel when somebody you really want to connect with is obviously more interested in their cell phone than they are in you? For some people, it makes them angry, makes them want to grab their head and yank it. But for most people, it makes them feel sad or small. But for everyone I've ever known, even the most self-confident people, if there's someone we really wish to be present with us and they're not fully present with us, it makes us feel worth less.
Yeah.
It makes us feel insignificant and unimportant. And here's the gig, leaders, and we're all leaders. I believe that our job, fundamentally, foundationally, above anything else, is to help the people that we lead, that we serve, that we love, to know they're important, to know they're significant, to know they matter, to know they count. Because when people feel important, they rise. They rise to a different level of loyalty. They rise to a different level of performance. They rise to a different level of commitment. And when people don't feel important, they feel unimportant, they fall from that, oh yeah, to oh no. How do you do it? How do you do it in the first 30 seconds with a new customer? How do you do it in the first minute when you're just meeting people? How do you do it with people when you're disagreeing or you're working through difficult challenges? Most of all, how do you do it with people who know your tricks? You can't fake them out. It comes down to making the decision, the conscious decision to be fully present. Now, I call it the gift because the greatest gift I've ever been given that really taught me this was by my two daughters, Kelsey and Jenna, way back when they were 8 and 3. I know you know this, Todd. Our young children are often our best teachers.
Yes.
And when they were 8 and 3, we had moved from the big city of Seattle, Washington, to a little town in the mountains of Montana called Hamilton, Montana. And the reason we moved was so that I would be more fully present. That's why we moved. You know, I was teaching this stuff, but I wasn't really living it. And at that time, my speaking business had taken off. I'd also taken on a contract to do marketing, promotion, and training for a direct sales company that was growing incredibly fast. I was on the road at least 20 days a month, sometimes more. So we decided to move out of the big city and all the stuff that took more time, the lines, the traffic, and move to a little town, move my office and my home. So at least on those few days each month when I was home, I'd be fully present. I'd be there on those mornings to get the girls up and make them breakfast and bring them to school, give my wife a break. I'd be there on those afternoons after school to pick them up, take them to dance practice, help them with their homework. I'd be there in the evenings with my wife, Carol, and the two girls to have family dinners, all four of us together. And I'd be there at night with Carol to tuck them in, to cuddle with them, to read them a story, to make sure the last thought they had before they started dreaming was that they were important, they were loved. That's why we moved. But have you ever known what to do, but you don't do what you know?
Yeah.
And at that time, doing what we're doing today was not possible. Doing remote business was completely different. First of all, we had no cell phones. We had no text. There was no such thing as a webinar. There was no such thing as Teams or Zoom or any of those platforms. And there was practically no email in those days. So the way you did remote business, and I was working, as you have throughout your life, with all these different time zones, including Europe and Australia. So every morning, so the only way to do it was to talk on the phone, unless you went there. And you won't believe this, Todd, but phones plugged into walls. Whoa. Okay. Anyway, so every morning I would go in my home office 2 doors away from where my daughters were sleeping. I'd be in that office by 4:30 a.m. to deal with all these different time zones. Well, next thing you know, I'd missed that window of opportunity to get them ready for school. Carol had done it. Same thing after school. I'd be on a conference call I just couldn't get off of. The family dinners, Todd, 75%ers. Carol, Kelsey, and Jenna, I'd still be up on that phone working on problems, but I was going to be present. And maybe the most special of those those windows of opportunity when your children are younger, because it doesn't last forever, is when you tuck them in at night, you cuddle with them, you tell them a story, you let them know they're loved. And I was on my way to doing that every single night when I made the same massive mistake. And I walked by my office door that was open, and you know what I saw sitting on that desk? I saw that darn telephone. And I knew that in the short time I'd run downstairs to get something to eat by myself and come back up, that I would have at least 5 new voicemails because I heard the phone ringing. And I got this thought. It's what I call an as soon as thought, the antithesis to presence, as soon as. And I thought to myself, well, while the girls are brushing their teeth and putting on their jammies, getting their stuff ready for school tomorrow, I'll just pop in my office here, knock off a few of these voicemails. So tomorrow morning, there won't be so many to do. Then, as soon as they're ready, I'll be there. I'll be present. I'll be the dad I want to be. Well, I can see everyone watching this same webinar right now knows what happened. An hour later, I finally put the phone down. I completely missed that opportunity. Carol had tucked them in, loved them, been present with them. And I remember so many nights, Todd, walking into their dark room in the dark, making my way to their bunk beds to give them each a kiss on the cheek they didn't even know they got.
Yeah, yeah.
And as I walked out, it felt like somebody slugged me in the stomach. And I feel this intense remorse. And I'd say to myself, I actually say to myself, tomorrow I'll be better. As soon as I get a little bit caught up, I'll be the dad I really want to be. But the next night, the phone was still there. And this went on for days, rolled into weeks, to turn into months. Until one night, when I was reaching for the phone, when I could have been tucking the girls in, should have been tucking the girls in, I was doing what usual. I was reaching for the phone. The only way I can describe what happened is I felt my daughter's energy behind me. I didn't hear them. I didn't see them, but I felt their vibration. I knew they were there somehow. I turned my head, I looked, and yep, there they were. And they're so darn cute, 8 and 3. And I just grinned at them and they ran to me. And little Jenna was only 3 and she dove into my lap and nosed my arm out of the way like a golden retriever. And I looked at these girls I love so much. And I go, girls, this is so cool. What are you doing? And they looked at me and they said, Daddy, can we please ask you something before we go to sleep tonight? I said, girls, you can ask me anything. And it grabbed my heart and they shook it free. And they changed everything in my life. And they gave me a compelling why that has been my light ever since. Because they looked at me innocently and they just asked me, Daddy, we just want to know, do you love your phone more than you love us?
Oh my
I
goodness.
felt the blade go in deep.
Yeah, and twisted.
Emerson said, what you do screams so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. I was living my life as if my phone was more important than my children, than my wife. Well, Todd, I want you to know I tucked them in that night.
Of course.
I never missed another night when I was home after that. The next morning, it was me who woke them up, got them breakfast, brought them to school. And my wife, Carol, was the happiest person on the planet because she's not a morning girl.
Yeah.
I never missed another morning after that. That day, when I came back from dropping them in school, I made a breakthrough decision that everyone in this webinar can make in some way in your life to be more present. I made up my mind that I'd never, ever, ever again book more than 7 speaking events in a month. I don't care what you pay me, I wouldn't do it. I made up my mind that my calendar would always start with them.
Yes.
And I lived it the rest of the time they were here at home with us. I never missed one of their dance performances after that. I never missed one of their big school events. I never missed one of those daddy and daughter dances. And I thought I was doing it for them. Do you know that every element in our life, every destination in our life elevated with the decision to be more fully present? You don't get less done being present, you get more done because you're there with full energy. It's the secret to life balance. Or better yet, a term that a friend of yours and mine, Stuart McMillan, he said life rhythm. I think too many people get messed up of the idea of life balance because they think it means equal time. Let's clear that up. You're not going to have equal time. There's 48 hours of stuff to do, 24 hours to do it in. You're not going to have equal time, but 5 minutes of being fully present is worth 5 hours of faking it.
Well, and I think right here, Brian, is a takeaway for everybody. The family side of things is always important. Full engagement is always important. You go to restaurants today and you see presumably a couple sitting down, and now 90% of their time together at that table is, texting, and there's no connection. Deb and I have a rule that phones are not part of any engagement that we go to, dinner or otherwise. And
Beautiful.
and I think about leaders. I think about leaders that might have a ding and a dong going off, and they're trying to talk to an employee, and then maybe their phone is vibrating, and it's just interrupting, the flow and everything. And I said something when my kids were 3 and 1, and I said, there's only 17 inches from the couch to the floor, but it'll make all the difference in the world to the 2 kids that are on the floor. And that was my full engagement moment as a dad, that I'm up here looking down at them. I need to get down with them and be present that way. And we need to be present with our teams. Imagine how much growth you could have with a team when you are present with them. Imagine how much faster a customer prospecting call could go when you're fully engaged and fully present. Imagine the Chinese proverb, if you chase two rabbits, both will escape. It's like
Exactly.
I can't influence Brian and handle email at the same time. I have to be fully present. And we all get to decide where that priority is as a leader. And I will tell you that the longer we ignore this P, the more difficult things will get in
No question.
every area
No
of our
question
life.
about it. It is the foundation because here's the truth. There's no trust without presence,
100%.
right? You only create trust when you're fully present because it says to every person every time you get down those 17 inches, every time you as a manager actually listen. And here's the secret
Yeah.
most of all, listen before you think about what you're going to say. Take it
Yeah.
in first because most of the time we're not listening. We're thinking about what
Right.
we're going to say. And you
Right.
watch, those people are going to start to respond in a different way.
Mhm.
But the truth is, the foundation of all relationship comes down to the P. And
Yes.
without it, there is no relationship, there is no trust, because every time we're present, we say to people, you are important.
Yeah.
You matter, you count. When I was with John Wooden, from every time I was with him, the most amazing phenomena as I left him, it was me who felt important. He was present for me, and I'm with the greatest of all time. Who am I?
Yeah.
And yet
Yeah.
he made me feel like I was that important. That's the power of presence. This is not a political thing I want to say, but it's an important thing. I was on an airplane once with Jimmy Carter when he was 85 years old. I don't care whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. This man at 85 years old was in Japan for Habitat for Humanity. Well, he walked down the entire plane, 747 up and down, and shook every person's hand. And everyone he was with, he took a second to be present with. He didn't have to do that. And I guarantee you, everyone on that plane felt important. And we have that capacity by making a decision,
Yeah.
And so, I want to give people something they can do as a leader, and we're all leaders, to change your life. And that is over the next 30 days, pick out two people in your life, one at work, one at home, who you commit to be more fully present with.
Love it.
It's as
Love it.
simple
Love
as
it.
that. Start small, inch by inch, anything's a cinch. It doesn't mean you have to spend more time with them, incidentally. Your schedule
No,
may be such that you have less time.
but
But
just
when you're
eye,
with them,
just eye contact, not having something you're looking at or thinking about.
yeah, put the cell phone away, shut
Yeah.
off the television,
Yeah.
ask
Yeah.
for the tell, and then listen.
Yeah. All right, we got a couple minutes. Give us the end and take us home.
Yeah, the N is absolutely a Todd Duncan masterpiece. The N is a simple word, now. You often talk about, take action now. Set that mark that you're doing it now. I like to look at the greatest gift. What is the greatest gift we're ever given? And I believe it's today.
Yeah, time.
And then it's going to be today, tomorrow. And I like to look at each day in the same way. I use the metaphor of the road in front of us. And every single day, several times each day, we're going to get to the same Y in the road. One side goes off this way and says now. The other side goes this way, says as soon as. To tell you the truth, as soon as looks a lot easier.
Yeah.
It is well lit. It is comfortable. It's got no potholes. It's got no ice. It looks like it's straight. Now is twisty and turny. There's lights out. There's potholes. But if you stay on the road called as soon as I was doing with my family, it's a direct road to never.
Never.
It will only take you to perpetual procrastination. Seize the woo, the window of opportunity. Choose the now. So if there's people that you have not really acknowledged, appreciated, and thanked, do it now.
Yeah.
If you can become more present by focusing on that and being conscious of working it and taking time each day to be present with yourself, taking that time, whether it's for prayer or meditation or a walk or whatever it is, that's the time that refuel. Good word. I like that word.
Yes, I like that word.
Because now is the time. And there's one last element to now. So the first part is choose the now, seize the woo. And the last is, since we're talking about building people, what's the one thing we got to avoid to keep from building people? And that's where the now comes in again. And There is one word that is the most destructive word in the language of teams, families, and organizations, and has no place in leadership. And the word is the word BLAME, blame. Blame kills teams. And there's a very practical reason why blame serves no purpose. Now, I'm not pretending we don't make mistakes and we don't have to have accountability for when we got to improve. But if you think about blame in the context of time, is blame about the past, the present, or the future? It's always about the past. So
Yes.
whenever you find yourself in blame, where are you? In the
Yes.
past.
Yesterday.
Can you do anything about the past?
Oh,
No. The only thing you can do from it is learn it. So if you really want to be a person that captures the power of now, it's one, make those choices right now, not tomorrow, not next week, not when you've caught up. Get rid of it as soon as, and recognize that you have an opportunity to build your team by being a blame buster. And a blame buster says, instead of blaming, getting caught up in the blame game, simply bring it into the present. Say, what did we do? What can we learn? What are we going to do now? And that way you take every challenge and you turn it into opportunity, every obstacle and turn it into learning. And you really aren't afraid of failure anymore. Because if you have a team where there's blame going on, it's like having that old carnival game called whack-a-mole. Right? Remember that game? You got the big mallet,
oh,
you
yeah.
those whack-a-moles.
Yeah.
Right? When you're in an organization where there's blame present, I can tell it in a minute, people are afraid to put their heads up because they're going to get blamed. So they don't. They stay down. They don't take chances. They don't learn. They don't take good risks to make things better. So you can change that by becoming dedicated as a leader, a dedicated blame buster, and seizing the now. So remember, be a world-class buddy thinker that answers that challenge that's in so many organizations where people don't feel appreciated.
Yeah.
Why do people not stick with organizations through thick and thin? Because they don't feel they matter. They don't feel they're important. Just remember ESPN. Thank people with and for effort and energy. S, use that power of surprise from time to time. Most of all, be fully present. When do you do it? Right now.
Do it now. Boom. What a great hour. And I, for one, just look at this, Brian, and I think about the beauty of just how, I mean, these are irrefutable principles. They cannot be denied. There's not a human being on the planet that would say, I don't want any one of these four things from my leader. Right. And I was reminded of Don Yeager, one of your fellow instructors, who said that the key that he has used is now. Now is more important than next. Next is more important than never, but never can end up being the most important because it paves the way for the time of now. And yeah, so what a great gift you are to the world, Brian Biro. How do people get a hold of you if they want to go deeper on some of the tools that you have for companies, and if they want to maybe contemplate bringing you in to speak to their organization? What's the best way to stay in touch with you?
Well, first of all, make sure you're signed up for Fuel.
Yeah,
because I'm the only guy in the history of Fuel. I bet I will be the only guy who did five courses in one day. That's my one claim to fame.
You have that.
So
you have that.
Go to myfuel.io. You got it. And then, of course, my website, brianbiro.com. So www.brianbiro.com. My passion is to be up in front of the room. When I'm on stage, I'm 25. Okay, when I get off stage, I'm 70. But on stage, I am 25. And it's because I have this undisputable belief that I'm there to serve.
Yeah.
That I want to bring energy. I want to bring presence. I want to bring the focus on our possibilities and our controllables. And I don't really care what comes back. I care what everyone in that room does with what we do, that they go forward and make a difference. If things are to change, I must change.
You're a hero, man. I love you tons. And I've watched you mesmerize audiences, and I can tell everybody watching that they leave transformed. And being in one of your audiences and participating as an audience member, one of the greatest joys of my life. So, Brian Biro, thanks. High five to you. I'm grateful for you. Good job on the effort and energy of making a difference in the world. So great that your text messages create stickiness for me. I feel present, and I feel your presence every time we're together. And you're a man of action, man. You do things now. So this ESPN I love it. All right. Thanks, everybody. Make sure you invite all of your friends and leaders and even teammates to Leadership Live every single week. We are here to serve. If you were to hire all of our instructors, it'd be about $3 million in speaker fees. You get to hang out with them for free every single Wednesday. So joy to you, Brian Biro, and joy to all of you.